Well, it is the fourth day of the fifth month of the year, the second day of the week, the first of my new week. Good evening. I'm Abubakar Abdullahi and welcome to New Week. Thank you as always for making time for us. For the next 1 hour, we will take you to the stories making headlines here locally and across the country. But first, these are the stories making our headlines tonight. Not letting up in Nairobi and Mombasa as 25 more people test positive for COVID-19. All of them are from the two city counties. Agriculture CS Peter Munya tells parliamentary committee that the country does not have enough maize reserves, with the private sector tasked to import 2 million bags. And a radio journalist killed by a gang of 4 at 3 a.m. in Kibra despite the nationwide dusk to dawn curfew. Good evening and welcome to the broadcast. Let's get to our top story. The rapid spread of COVID-19 has been associated majorly with the disobedience of Kenyans who have failed to adhere to the Ministry of Health's directive. Giving a daily update on coronavirus today, Health CAS Mercy Mwangangi warned vendors who allow mask buyers to touch more than one item. Josh Onsare begins our broadcast this evening.
It is also noted that there are vendors who continue to allow people to fit more than one mask when buying. This is a dangerous practice, and this can lead to mass infection.
25 more Kenyans have tested positive for coronavirus, bringing the total of cases in Kenya to 490. This is after testing 1,012 samples in the last 24 hours.
Out of this number, 25 people tested positive for coronavirus. And out of these cases, 15 are from Nairobi, whereas 10 are from Mombasa. All the 25 cases are Kenyans, and none of them has a history of travel. In terms of gender, 13 are males and 12 are female. The age distribution of the new cases ranges from 6 months to the youngest to 60 to the oldest.
Among the areas that recorded the 25 cases of COVID-19 in Nairobi include Eastleigh with 8 cases, Kawangware and Umoja 2 cases each, Mathare, Kahawa West and Kariobangi recorded 1 case each. In Mombasa County, Old Town recorded 8 cases, Bombolulu and Jomvu had 1 case each. Dr. Mwangangi has emphasized on the need to follow the government directives since it's an individual responsibility to curb the spread of the deadly virus.
And to remind you, 1, we must observe social distancing. 2, we must continue to wash our hands frequently. 3, we do call on you to stay at home and only go out when it's absolutely necessary. And whenever you're out in public, one must wear the face mask.
Globally, more than 3.5 million people have tested positive for COVID-19 with over 248,000 deaths. Josh Onsare, TV47 Nairobi.
Elsewhere, the county government of Bungoma is calling upon the national government to rank it as a hotspot for COVID-19. This after the Ministry of Health confirmed 2 cases of COVID-19 from 2 truck drivers. Addressing the media earlier on, Governor Wycliffe Wangamati also urged the government to install 2 laboratories capable of running COVID-19 tests. Wanji Sostin now reports.
The county government of Bungoma yesterday confirmed the 2 cases of COVID-19, becoming the 16th county in the country to have a case of the contagious virus. The cases are 2 truck drivers who were tested at Malaba border. The 2 had started their journey in Mombasa.
Out of these 112 cases, we now have confirmed 2 cases in Bungoma County.
Bungoma Governor Wycliffe Wangamati says his county is prepared to manage the 2 patients. He also insists that every individual entering Bungoma County must have to be screened.
As a county, we are prepared to manage the patients and will continue screening all persons entering and going through Bungoma. say that all women and any other persons holding truck drivers that shall be noted, we will forcefully quarantine you in Webuye.
Wangamati is now calling on the national government to earmark Bungoma County as one of the high-risk areas for COVID-19. The governor also wants 2 testing centers set up in the county.
The cabinet secretary, Mheshimiwa Kagwe, that Bungoma needs to be categorized as a high risk because of the highway that passes through Bungoma County. We also request the national government that only very essential goods are transported by road to Uganda, Rwanda, and DRC. We also require the national government, given the position that we're in as a county government, as a county, that we set up a testing center among the 2 labs that have been identified in Bungoma County.
The governor wanted people residing beside the Trans-African Highway to begin with the truck drivers, adding that those who interact with the 2 patients will have to go in mandatory quarantine. Wanje Sostin, TV47, Bungoma.
Moving on, despite Narok Senator Ladema Olekina winning the race against his counterpart, Professor Sam Ongeri, to chair the Senate Committee on Public Accounts and Investment, the minority side has expressed its displeasure through the minority leader, Senator James Orengo, who has now written to the Senate Speaker to withdraw their membership from the committee until an amicable solution is found. In the elections held on Monday afternoon, Olekina garnered 5 votes against Professor Sam Ongeri, who garnered 4 votes. Kiambu Senator Kimani Wamatangi won the deputy chair's seat. Moving on, the country is staring at a food shortage amidst COVID-19. Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Peter Munya says there is no adequate maize in the NCPB reserves. Elizabeth Mutuku reports.
Appearing before the Senate Agriculture Committee, Cabinet Secretary Peter Munya said the country has a maize shortage of 2 million bags, a gap that the ministry plans to plug by facilitating private sector to import the maize.
And that is why the cabinet approved an importation of 2 million bags of white maize and also 2 million bags of yellow maize for purposes of producing animal feed, so that human beings don't compete for the 2 million bags of white maize. This importation has already been approved, and an asset notice has been published, where we sat with the millers and agreed on who imports what. So it's not government importing, it is private millers, private citizens importing.
Munya told the senators that through the set guidelines, only millers and private sector will be allowed to import maize, and the ministry will purchase maize from farmers since they intend to fill the gap before the next harvest season.
2,900 to 3,000 shillings. Which is actually the price of thinning right now in Eldoret and the Rift Valley, where maize is grown. So this maize is simply coming to fill a gap as we wait for the next rains, and it is attracting duty. It's not duty-free maize, and it is also millers. You restricted it to millers who will bring it in the country. They know what to do with it. They are the ones who mill it and sell it, and the price will be comparable.
On the locust invasion, which has been a major concern to many Kenyans, Munya said the ministry has already sprayed over 28 counties, and only now less than 5 counties are infested with the ravenous locusts.
So the oppas and the nymphs that were hatched from the eggs, we have cleared most of them. As I have explained, it's just one that region, 5 counties where we have some locusts left. And even in their report, they are saying probably less than a third of the second generation locusts are left there. And the spraying and containment is going on daily.
At the same time, Munya said that his ministry is working hard to ensure that they cushion the agriculture sector during the COVID-19 pandemic. Elizabeth Mutuku, TV47 Nairobi.
Elsewhere, police in Kilifi have arrested 21 suspects in connection with the Sunday night killing of a policeman in Rabai sub-county. This follows a thorough crackdown by police officers after the incident was reported. Confirming the incident in his office, Kilifi County Police Commander James Mugare said a gang of unknown armed people with machetes and other crude weapons on Sunday at 7 p.m. attacked 2 police officers who were heading to the police station after their usual patrol. The assailants took away Kelvin Kiguri's firearms. Moving on, a man has been killed in Kibra today by a known gang when he was heading home from work. Mohammed Marjan, who worked with Pamoja FM in Nairobi, was killed by the gang at 4 a.m. Kibra residents later caught up with one of the suspects and lynched him. Another suspect has been handed over to police. Residents decry that despite the dusk to dawn curfew, insecurity has shot up in Kibra.
Mohammed Marjan was many things to different people in Kibra. But to one Mariam Ramadan, he was the love of her life and the father of her 4 children.
Ndio kuna kijana ndiye alikuja kunibishia mlango. Kaniambia mimi toka kwa haraka sana. Mimi sasa hiyo tukatoka kwa haraka, tumeenda kumwona ndio amekufa hapo nje.
Mariam Ramadan is now a widowed on the holy month of Ramadan. Her husband was killed at 3 a.m. on Monday when he was returning home after a radio show at Pamoja FM.
Sikujua kitu ile ilitendeka kwanza. Mimi nilijua ni gari. Nikaanza tu kulia ni gari. Sasa ndio nikaenda kukimbia na nyuma nikiita madada zake, ndio wakaenda kupata ni kisu, ndio wamemdunga huko.
Kibra residents have accused the police of laxity, especially during the dusk to dawn curfew. Marjan was murdered some few meters from Kibra law courts. It is alleged that slain Marjan was attacked by 4 men. One of the suspects was later killed by a mob in Kibra, and another one is being held at Kilimani police station. The other 2 suspects escaped.
Hii curfew yenye alikuwa amesema hii curfew ya saa 1 ni selective kwa watu wengine ama makarau venye wanakuja mtaani. Kuna time yenye pia wamewekea pia kuna curfew yao.
Zablon Masharia for TV47 Nairobi.
Well, it's 12 minutes past the hour. It's time for us to take a short break here on New Week rather. We still have a lot lined up for you. We'll be back with more news after this break.
Mount Kenya University takes pride in being an academic giant with some of the best infrastructure, imparting knowledge to the best brains in the country and the region. Our members of faculty are keen to deliver market-driven programs in science and humanities with a keen focus on linkages with relevant organizations. We admit both self-sponsored and government-sponsored students under the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service. Join us today and train with the best to become the best. Mount Kenya University, unlocking infinite possibilities.
Since late last year, the coronavirus COVID-19 has emerged as a serious healthcare threat. This is an infection that has gone global and no one has been spared. The government, through the Ministry of Health, has put in measures to keep Kenyans safe against COVID-19, which is currently rampant around the world, with new confirmed infections and death cases daily. Such sanitization and screening of visitors at this border post and across every entry point in the country is very vital in preventing the spread of the disease in the country.
I'm very happy about the screenings that are going on in Tanzania and Kenya. I think it's very proactive that you're thinking about stopping it at the border so that it does not spread.
It is scary that a single cough here can lead to an outbreak of epic proportions. In order to prevent that, the government has instituted measures to keep Kenyans safe.
The facility has all the equipments you need, from handling a basic patient up to ICU setting.
However, you also have a role to play in preventing spread of infections.
Citizen responsibility is the key to the success of this initiative and these measures. Let's all do what we have to do individually. And this is how we are going to defeat this disease.
It's just our general hygiene, okay? And that now means at workplaces, we should ensure that our work surfaces are clean.
Always ensure that nimefanya proper sanitation ya mikono. Every time na board matatu, lazima ni sanitize mikono.
We have faced many severe challenges as a nation, and we have always found a way to rise above them. COVID-19 is no different, and we will overcome the pandemic. Stop coronavirus. Follow all directives from the Ministry of Health. Wash your hands properly.
All right, welcome back. Thank you for choosing to stay with us here on New Week. Let's move on. Stories making headlines. Now, over 160 people have died and tens of thousands displaced since heavy rains started in March. Devolution Cabinet Secretary has assured those who have been affected by the ongoing heavy rains in different parts of the country that they will receive the right humanitarian aid. Aaron Kipkoech with the report.
A week ago, Devolution CS Eugene Wamalwa launched a food distribution exercise and other services to displaced families following the heavy downpour and landslides which have affected more than 20 counties. So far, more than 160 people have been confirmed dead, while 100,000 are displaced after their homes were flooded and others buried by landslides. Devolution CS Eugene Wamalwa is assuring the affected families that the government is in control and it has put measures to contain the situation.
Serikali kuu itaendelea kusimama na wale wote wameathirika kwa ajili ya mafuriko haya. Kwa sasa immediate action ni kusaidia wale wamepoteza maboma yao, hawana pahala pa kulala, wamepoteza malazi, vyakula, mali yao, na wamekuja kwa shule hizi.
Budalangi Member of Parliament Raphael Wanjala urged the government to pay more attention to floods as much as they do to the coronavirus pandemic, saying the rains have killed way too many people and disrupted many livelihoods.
Hata ninashangaa kwa nini serikali inaangaza sana mambo ya corona na maji imefurika imeua watu kushinda corona. Kwa hivyo ningeomba serikali itoe focus yake, iweke kwa corona na iweke pia kwa janga la kitaifa la mafuriko.
Aaron Kipkoech, TV 47.
All right, it's not only Budalangi that has been affected by the floods. Of course, the floods continue to cause havoc across the country. Moving on, 5 health workers' union have threatened to go on strike in 2 weeks if the government does not address their grievances first. They lament over lack of adequate education on COVID-19 as well as lack of personal protective gears, among other grievances. Lydia Gashomo reports.
Comrades, power! Power! Comrades, power! Power!
Those words are enough proof that these leaders of 5 unions of health workers are ready to fight for their rights. According to the national chairman of Kenya Union of Clinical Officers, Peterson Washira, they have been presenting their complaints but in vain.
When the unions raise issues, it is the expectation that when the leadership of the employees talk, that the government must come to the table and listen to them, because they are the people who are on the ground, who know where the shoe pinches.
Some of the issues they've been presenting are lack of enough education and personal protective equipment to help them protect themselves from the deadly coronavirus, denial of access to the city center from the neighboring counties, and not being involved in the coronavirus emergency committee, among others.
Ingine ni ile mikataba ambayo wameweza kuleta ambayo inakiuka sheria zile zilizopo. Hizi mikataba tumesema lazima zifutiliwe mbali. Kwa wakati huu ambapo ni hatari sana kwa kila mtu. Wanaafya wanatumika kama kinga wananchi wote. Hapa Kenya na pia ulimwenguni kote. Na kwa sasa watu wanalipwa shilingi 15,000 kufanya kazi hii. Chini ya vile ambavyo wamehitimu kufanya hiyo kazi. Tumesema ilani yetu kwamba hizi nyadhifa mikataba ambayo haikutani ama haikinzani inakinzana na sheria, lazima ifutiliwe mbali na ni lazima waweze kuweka kwa mikataba ama structures ya scheme of service zile exist.
He said that these leaders have called upon the Ministry of Health to take action on the officials in the Ministry of Health who have been involved in graft.
How can you transfer? Redeploy people. You are saying they have misappropriated funds. They are supposed to remain in the ministry, investigate them. If they are found guilty, let them face the full force of the law. Your actions are very clear that you are out to cover up.
Following the memory released by the 5 unions of health workers, the chairman of Kenya Health Professional Society, Mohamed Duba, has said that a national strike by the health workers from the 5 unions will commence on the 18th of this month if the government does not look into their grievances.
This is a reference to a memorandum submitted to your office highlighting the issues mostly affecting healthcare workers, and which the union requested the government to address them with finality. It is disappointing to know that up to date, the government has remained adamant or choose to totally ignore our grievance, leaving the union and the association with no option but to take further action.
Lydia Gashomo, TV47.
Moving on, the residents of Malava in Kakamega who are attending the burial of the late Albert Watundu were forced to seek safety after police enforcing a ban on gathering in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic lobbied tear gas canisters to disperse crowds. Mulindi Kerry with the details.
They had gathered in the home of the late Albert Watundu for his burial. The mourners were obviously emotional for losing Watundu, and the police made sure they cried. In the spirit of a ban on public gatherings, the police lobbed tear gas at the mourners in Malava, causing mayhem as everyone scampered for safety. The church and family of the late Watundu, however, vowed to conduct a fresh befitting burial to the deceased once the coronavirus pandemic ends.
Sisi kama kanisa la Marafiki tumehusunika sana kwa sababu tumepelekwa haraka, hata hakuna mahubiri ambayo tumehubiri hapa. Tumepelekwa haraka, hata hakuna hatuchafanya kazi yetu jinsi tunavyoifanya kawaida, kama tumepoteza mtu wetu ambaye amepatiswa.
Ya kwamba hii ndio masishi kamili ya Watundu. Baada ya corona tutapanga matanga sawa sawa kama washu, na tutafanya matanga ya huyu mheshimiwa.
Political leaders present later told of KOTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli over his remarks about appointing the region's presidential flag bearer come 2022.
Mtu akitafuta kura yake apeane heshima kwa Musalia. Hivyo ndio mimi ningependa kusema kama mjumbe wa Malava, na sitakuwa na mengi. Nikimaliza mchukue 1 mita msimame vizuri kwa matanga.
Na ningependa kuwauliza watu wangu wote, tafadhali tuzingatie sheria hizo tuweze kupambana na mambo ya corona.
Hivyo unapoambiwa kwamba wewe utatawazwa, utakuwa mnenaji wa Waluya, ni utani, unataniwa. Kwa sababu huo mkufu uko na mwenyewe, na hawa wote wataingia katika mstari mmoja mwaka wa 22 tutakapokuwa tumezindua siasa huku. Usipokuwa katika huo mrengo wa Mudavadi, basi hutakuwa na pale unaelekea.
Calls for Mulembe Nation to rally behind a single presidential candidate have fallen on deaf ears over the years. In every election cycle, the region has more than 2 presidential aspirants. Mulindi Kerry, TV47 in the county of Kakamega.
Let's get to some international news now. The United Nations mission in South Sudan has partnered with the newly elected Citizens Task Force on COVID-19 to create awareness of the virus and its dangers and how it can combat it while protecting themselves and the people around them. And in Nigeria, 24 Lagos healthcare workers in scrubs and face masks rushed outside the isolation tents and making sure to keep 6 feet apart of the bright green grass, danced and swayed as saxophonists and trumpets struck up the gospel band.
Getting the truck ready to go to the communities. The truck itself carrying a banner with a very powerful message on how members of the public can prevent themselves from the deadly coronavirus. This group is made up of citizens from every walk of life in South Sudan. They came together after they saw there was a need to address the misconception about the virus. They partnered with the United Nations mission in South Sudan with an aim of 14 days outreach event using a promo truck which rides around the country's capital Juba and throughout the country broadcasting messages in local languages.
This whole program is being rolled out in collaboration with UNMISS. So we have messages that are pre-recorded in different languages. So wherever we go, like in POC, where we know predominantly the people there understand one particular language, then those messages are played in their language. And we also emphasize the importance of social distance and taking in consideration the culture in South Sudan. We feel that social distance as per se may not be understood by our people. Therefore, what we do is we go into details and tell them that it means you don't have to be close to people, at least keep a distance of 2 meters away from the next person.
Currently, the South Sudan has a total of 46 confirmed coronavirus cases.
One of the biggest challenges that we have observed, and being a South Sudanese, is that it takes my people long to accept, and the myth that had been there has confused a lot, and there's so much miscommunication in society. Some people think COVID-19 is not about them, it's a foreign thing, and it's a disease that will not affect them as South Sudanese. Others are saying you take strong tea in the morning, which is all wrong. And what we are saying is that we are all human, and COVID-19 affects everybody.
Special Representative of the Secretary General of the United Nations, David Shuara, says that they hope with the consistent messaging people will adapt to preventive behavior.
UNMISS is travelling right around the country. We're going to places like Leah, Ding Ding, but from Malakal right down to Yambio, across to Wau, and right down into the eastern Equatoria. We have the same message in the languages that people understand, which is keep safe, keep your distance, wash your hands, all of the same messages that I have to follow and everybody should follow. And in the POCs, particularly because everybody's so close together.
Elsewhere, in Nigeria, patients and healthcare workers in one of the isolation facilities in Lagos State got entertained by a group of musicians. Inside the tents, some of the patients, all battling the coronavirus, walked through the plastic windows and, if strong enough, danced and swayed with the healthcare workers who were dancing outside. Abolaji Banjoko, a 32-year-old known as BJ Sachs, typically would have spent the day playing to a crowd of thousands at a packed mega church in Nigeria's commercial capital, but this was no ordinary Sunday. Lagos was under lockdown, mass gathering were banned, and Bonjoko and his musicians were under special orders from the state to play their tunes to try to speed the recovery from a virus that has killed hundreds of thousands worldwide. Peter Luodari, a 23-year-old violinist, say it was scary to be close to the pandemic, but say the importance of the music has helped him conquer his fear, and it feels good to give others hope.
It was refreshing to see the affected persons and healthcare workers, revitalized with the music, and passing that healing through the therapeutic music that we're doing. It was an opportunity. I feel so honored to play there. I would love to repeat bringing joy anytime and anywhere I can. That's what we all share as humanity. Seeing each other happy, spreading love.
Abusere Leo, a Lagos doctor, called the initiative essential.
So if we have something that can stimulate people fighting back, which you cannot quantify in terms of the number of pills or whatever you give for, it should be encouraged.
Akina Boyami, a Lagos State Health Commissioner, launched the Art for Life project last year to add music, painting and poetry to the state's healthcare arsenal. Now it includes weekly concerts outside the coronavirus isolation and treatment centers. There are currently 2,558 confirmed cases in Nigeria, 1,107 of them in Lagos. State authorities believe that music can help ease the recovery. Lexi Kimani, TV47.
Elsewhere, pupils, teachers and parents who had to pivot quickly to take lessons online in the wake of a lockdown that has seen schools closed across Africa's most populous country, Nigeria. But in areas where income and infrastructure are prohibitive, traditional learning is the only option. Leangare now reports.
With her school shut because of the coronavirus, Tolu Alagba kneels as she copies down class notes from a communal village chalkboard, the closest thing to online lessons on an island with no electricity, a boat ride from Nigerian megacity Lagos. Like much of the world, Nigeria ordered schools shut in late March to curb the spread of the coronavirus. But while children in many countries have shifted to online lessons, that is all but impossible in most of Nigeria, where fewer than 8% of households have access to the internet. In Tolu's small fishing community, a retired teacher has volunteered to teach around 20 children 3 times a week in sessions lasting 2 hours. Children unable to attend in person can copy out the notes by hand, posted on the chalkboard mounted in a communal veranda. Experts say the pandemic and the global shutdown of schools is deepening educational disparities between rich and poor, both between countries and within them. Wealthier Nigerian families have access to the internet, and schools in affluent areas offer some form of distance learning. Emmanuel Ntaji began teaching virtually a few days after the school closures.
Teaching them having a video chat and things like that were something we just have to quickly adapt to be able to keep the learning going on. So when the lockdown started, it was a bit challenging for us because we have to look for all means to get some devices available.
Kasiane Onoge in the Ogudu suburb of Lagos spends 5,000 naira, that is $14 each week, on internet and electricity. A large sum in a country where most people live on less than $2 a day. It enables her to go online for up to 2 hours a day with her 6-year-old daughter, Naomi. But even here, and despite the expense, the materials are far from what pupils in rich countries might expect.
Generally, it's bad and slow, and then uploading or attaching the assignment is tough. Yes, you will say, why don't you write and snap? Uploading as well is a picture you're going to upload. If it's a Word document, either ways you upload it. So the network generally is not good and is not encouraging.
Many parents or many students may not be able to afford this. It's quite expensive because it involves data, involves light, involves close relationship. Most of the parents may not even know what to do with the children. They may not know at all if they are not exposed to let me say, if they are not techy enough.
Nigeria has recorded more than 1,700 cases of the new coronavirus, resulting in over 40 deaths. Although the president has announced a gradual and phased end to a lockdown in Lagos from Monday, no plans have been announced to reopen schools. With online learning off limits to most children, authorities are hoping educational programming on older media such as television and radio can help. Various states will provide lessons on radio and TV on subjects ranging from English and maths to economics and chemistry, according to a tweet from the government on Thursday listing a timetable of programs.
Elsewhere, Rwanda has eased its nationwide lockdown starting today when some people were allowed to return to work. The decision was reached in an extraordinary cabinet meeting chaired by President Paul Kagame last week. However, schools will remain closed until September 2020. Our correspondent in Rwanda, Diana Iriza, is in Kigali and joins us now. Diana, good evening. Good to see you. How is Kigali looking like this evening?
Hi, Abubakar. Good evening to you. It is nice talking to you today. So this is the very first day lockdown being coming to an end and the country officially reopening. Now, last week on the 30th of April, there was a cabinet meeting chaired by the President, His Excellency Paul Kagame, and him, together with a few other government officials, came up with a few resolutions and in regards to the COVID-19 situation here in Rwanda. And some of the resolutions was, of course, to reopen the country partially and keep encouraging the citizens, residents of the country to keep practicing the preventive precautions like washing your hands and sanitizing your hands regularly, practice social distancing, and also being back home by 8 p.m. So we have a curfew right now in the country. That's an 8 p.m. curfew, and the Rwandan police is promising to take this very seriously.
All right.
And any citizen that is for
Diana, let me
ask
you this: is the partial reopening of the country is indicative of the condition getting better now?
The COVID condition? What condition exactly?
I mean, of course, yes, the COVID-19 condition in the country.
Yeah. Well, this is the very first day, so we can't really tell if the reopening of the country is going to make the situation any better. We're just hopeful that it will improve the economy, because this is something that is making the economy really go down in most countries across the globe. So we can't really tell how beneficial the partial reopening will be to the country, but we're just waiting to see.
All right, and despite this partial reopening, I suppose there are strict measures that need to be followed by people. It's not just reopening without measures, is it?
Yes, of course. Just like I mentioned earlier on, there's a curfew. We're supposed to be back home by 8 p.m. and no car is supposed to move after 8 p.m. And then when it comes to transportation, we only have buses and taxis operating in the country. Motorcycles are allowed to operate in the country unless if they're just transporting goods and products, but they're not allowed to transport passengers. And of course, the other measures are the usual measures: sanitizing your hands, washing your hands, using masks. A passenger who does not have a mask on is not allowed to board the bus. So those are one of the measures to be followed by the citizens.
All right, Diana, to the specifics now. What are some of the sectors, the areas that are gaining from this reopening?
The sectors that are mostly benefiting from this reopening, obviously, the sectors within the business world, the business industry here in the country. They are the ones that were mostly affected by the lockdown. They are allowed to operate 50% capacity. Markets are allowed to operate at 50% capacity, and they are being permitted to use cashless transaction. That's also a measure to avoid contacting cash and the use of cash. That's a measure that they have to follow in order to prevent the spread of the virus.
Diana,
but businesses are really good benefit from this.
All right, Diana, thank you for that explanation. Finally, before I let you go, I understand schools are reopening in September 2020. That's, I suppose, 4 months from now. Was there any explanation as to why that calendar was pushed to September?
Well, so far, prediction as yet, but there's a lot of discussion going on. So many funders are complaining about this because students are being pushed back. They're not moving on with their studies. They're not moving on to classes ahead. Have to basically repeat their academic year from September. So it's a big issue, and many Rwandans are complaining about. But there is no any official statement, any official explanation on it. There's just discussions ongoing so far, and we're just waiting to hear what the government says about the schools reopening 4 months from now.
All right, Diana Iriza, our correspondent in Kigali, of course, talking to us of matters, the reopening of Kigali and Rwanda in terms of easing the lockdown, and of course, lessons to learn from that country, and some of the questions as to why the schools need to be closed till September. I suppose all those were answered in as far as bringing us up to speed with the latest is concerned from Rwanda. Of course, TV47 covers here in Kenya, but as well we keep you up to date and up to speed with the latest that is happening in the region and across the world. And of course, you can keep talking to us at TV47KE is our Twitter handle. Text us on 22047. The hashtag to use is TV47 New Week. Moving on. A section of Nairobi County MCAs are reviving talks of impeaching Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko after he indicated his intention of terminating the deed of transfer of key functions to the national government, citing frustrations by unnamed individuals in the office of the president. But as Linda Alela reports, the move is a divided one, as Jubilee MCAs say that they have not received a word about it. All right, I understand that story will be coming on your way shortly. Nonetheless, keep talking to us on 22047. Text us, send us a message. And as far as the stories that we are covering is concerned, do you have that story now? All right, I understand now we can take a short break. We'll be back with that story as we finalize the bulletin. We'll be back after this break. Welcome back now. Let's take a story that we had earlier hinted to you is coming on your way. A section of Nairobi County MCAs are reviving talks of impeaching Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko after he indicated his intention of terminating the deed of transfer of key county functions to the national government, citing frustrations by unnamed individuals in the office of the president. But as Linda Alela now reports, the move is a divided one, as Jubilee MCAs say that they are not aware of the impeachment.
What was seen as a rescue mission for Nairobi has turned out to be a bitter pill for the king of rescuers to swallow. Nairobi Governor Mike Mbuvi Sonko. The few who know how to study body language would tell you that his audacity masks his desperation. His political journey is set for more hiccups as a section of MCAs have revived talks of removing him from office.
By and by, I think the MCAs of Nairobi were very ready. If that Tuesday could have come, Nairobians could have really known that there are leaders in Nairobi who are elected across the political parties. Because we saw as MCAs there is a problem. And we dissected the problem and we got the medic that we wanted to inject into this problem. And we are ready. And even now I believe the MCAs are still ready. If given a go-ahead to give the injection what the South of Nairobi, they can give that injection.
Hiyo issue imerais sababu ya change of leadership. Ndio ameona ametolewa inarudishiwa Nguyo. So ameanza na yeye kusema impeachment lazima irudi wakiwa na wale wenzake wa NASA kadhaa.
In an unprecedented move in February, Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko surrendered key county functions to the national government in the wake of corruption charges leveled against him. A move he later termed as coercion.
And Sonko has kept on defining himself for incompetence is. When a full governor governing 5 million Kenyans can say he signed a document without reading it, really, that's a fair example of saying you're incompetent enough. Just reading a document that commits the lives of 5 million Kenyans somewhere is one of the worst incompetence you can be. So I won't say that the government's on the other side. Sonko has already been on his own side. Sonko has never taken anybody serious in terms of making service to the people.
As he wrestles the transferred functions back from the national government, accusing senior officials in the office of the president of frustrating him, his defiantness seems to fall on deaf ears as the president continues to tighten his grip on the Nairobi Metropolitan Services.
We need to read again Article 187 2B of the Constitution. And it expressly says that the constitutional responsibility of any of the functions that are transferred from one government to the other shall remain with the government that transferred them.
The renewed calls for a fresh ouster comes at a time when the governor is at loggerheads with the Nairobi Metropolitan Services over functions transferred to Mohammed Badi's office. A scenario that experts argue lays the ground open for the MCA's impeachment efforts to sail through. Jubilee Party MCAs have, however, disputed the above allegations, arguing that no official communication has been given to override the options given to them by President Kenyatta months ago when talks of an impeachment of the governor were rife.
That deed, I've seen that deed, it's so biting that it must be on mutual consent between him and the president for one to walk out of that deed. It is time. However, he is on the songs of lamentation like any other person because he's getting the frustrations.
Roysambo MCA Peter Warutere, who is also the chair of Health Committee in the County Assembly, and his counterpart MCA Anthony Gatune of Kahawa West, say no official plans have been set to revive the impeachment process.
There's a big relationship between the president and the governor, Mike Sonko. Had it not been for that, then he could have gone it away. It would have been easy. We would have been glad maybe for us to even set him up, to set him up. That won't happen.
Kuna mpango kama hiyo, watu ni speculations na kuongea. Lakini ile wakati tutaitwa kikao tutaanza kujua the way forward.
Question is, what will it take to impeach Sonko? Will the motion against him see the light of day, or the previously speculated exchange of political handouts and political sanitization will play out again?
For people to impeach a governor, 122 of us, we need a threshold of 3 quarters of 122. That is 92 members. Must, that is 42, must sign the impeachment motion, and for that particular day, that house must have 2/3, which is about, I think, 82 members. We need to believe we are 66. The other coalition has 56, I bet, yes, to make it 122. Governor has people from both sides, I can tell you for sure. For people to raise the signatures, 55 even, to impeach Governor Sonko, unless that directive is already coming from one person. And that person is the president of this public. It would be like cutting Mohumo tree to impeach the governor of Nairobi. That is not...
Office of the Governor, Nairobi City County, indeed an office that is haphazardly occupied by the governor himself, embattled Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko. A question of wait and see of what its fate is going to be as talks of an impeachment are rife. Battles against him and the national government have put the people of Nairobi in limbo. But for how long is a question of wait and see. Reporting for TV47, Linda Alela.
But for how long? Linda Alela brilliantly asks that. And of course, that answer is a question too that we'll be keeping following up for you here at TV47. I understand we have come to the end of the bulletin, but nonetheless, it doesn't end without your feedback. Francis Chongor on Twitter says this is police laxity when dealing with security issues. Of course, this is in reference to a story we aired on earlier where a journalist was killed. Moving on, Telvin Teum says the government money should be used properly in as far as floods and sorting out the crisis is concerned. All right, let's move on and get to some of your feedback. Gibson Amenya says may his soul rest in peace. All right, Aladdin Twalib says nabora tu nyamaze, wakikusikia watakuroga tena. That as well is his opinion. And that brings us to the end of tonight's edition of New Week. I'm Abubakar Abdullahi on behalf of the entire team that made this production possible. Remember always to adhere to the guidelines. Wash your hands, put on a mask, have a social distance, and where possible, stay at home. Good night and God bless.
This May on TV47, we are giving you more reason to stay at home.
You are the chosen